Okay, chill. We have again a few interviews.
Oh, that's good. Everyone awake again and alive with coffee shots. So, let's invite DJ Flubbel to the stage. Thank you very much. Give him a hand, please. Can we have another microphone? That would be wonderful. Thank you. It's hiding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are we on? Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
All the way from the Netherlands.
Yes, it was a long drive for me.
Yeah, is this your first time at Christian Artists?
Actually, it is. Yes, I've even never heard of it before, but I'm glad to came here. It's really a nice gathering and a lot of inspirational people. I already spoke. So.
Yes. Oh, fantastic! Oh, well, welcome as a first timer. So you're known as a Christian DJ and producer. How did this journey begin for you?
Well, it started, I think, about 15 or 20 years ago at school, just the music lessons that I first even got to know about producing music. And after that, I kind of did it as a hobby. But now, I guess 10 years ago, I started to go more professional. Even it is actually still a hobby, if I be honest. But still, I think it's as professional as I can get it. And I decided to go into the Christian electronic dance music.
Okay, and so could you tell us about some of the projects that you've done so far?
Yeah, well, my first track was called Your Mercy Is Enough. And I made that track after a discussion I had with a conservative Christian who was really against electronic music. I know it's a controversial genre. Not everybody likes electronic music or even says it's okay. But for me it was like making a statement that you can combine the Christian faith and electronic music perfectly in one piece of art. So that's how it started. And lately I did 3 albums and 2 EPs. So it's going quite well, I guess. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And you work mainly from home, is that right? From a home studio. So how do you collaborate with other artists and musicians?
Yeah, well, what I try to do is to collaborate with as much as people as possible, because first of all, it's really inspiring to combine strength, and also I think you can really reach another level when you work with someone else who can learn your stuff. And what I do is I use social media to get connected. And for example, my second album was done with a guy from America, and we actually even met after the project. So we did the whole album using Facebook, using Skype, FaceTime, and we did a lot of emailing and texting, and in the end, years even later, we finally met in person in real life. So yeah, it's really cool to work with people all abroad. Yeah.
A total online community, which yeah, is a kind of different way of working, but good. Wonderful. Now, do you do this full time? Is this your living? Do you earn an income through this?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately not. I try to make some money off it, but it's a hard work, and I think you all know that especially the Christian scene is quite hard to reach enough people to get the money going on. So I've got another job, and for me that other job is also really important. So somehow, because of that other job, I'm so blessed financially as well that I can commit my music more into the evangelical side. So really spreading the message of Christ, and of course having fun during the process.
Okay, so can you reveal what that other job is?
Oh yes, I'm a psychiatrist, so I'm a medical doctor, and it's sometimes a struggle to combine those two, of course, because at one moment I'm really serious, or most of the time, and the other moment I'm at stage shouting and yelling, and you got your time as well. It's hard to manage, but yeah, it's a nice way to combine those two.
Yeah. I bet there aren't many people like you around. It's quite
Not
scary.
sure.
A psychiatrist DJ. Oh my goodness.
I can look into your eyes. Well, there are some other doctors as well. I think as long as you're creative in person, and I think we all are who are here, at least all people I saw until now. I think when you got creativity and you can do whatever you want, and I think you can really reach a high level of professionalism.
That's fantastic. Now you started to allude to some challenges. What are the life balance challenges for you?
Well, I think my main challenge is time management. Because of my job, it's quite a serious job, but also my will to keep producing, to keep performing, that's a hard balance. Even harder now, I've got a girl of 1 year old, so yeah, I think that's when the management really comes in. Yeah, to keep your priorities and still use as much time as possible doing stuff and arranging stuff.
Okay, that's great, and a challenge as well. Like
yes.
So, are there any other? There's some advice there that you've given already, but do you have any other advice for people who perhaps starting out in a similar creative area to you?
I think time management is really important to really keep yourself focused on what you want to achieve. And also, if you want to achieve something, really go for it. There will be people saying you can't do that. There will be people saying you shouldn't do that, it's hopeless. But you really have to stay focused and ignore all those negative voices. For me, for example, I've heard a lot of, and of course haters gonna hate, that's what's happened, especially in the Christian scene, maybe especially in the Christian electronic dance scene. But you have to keep focused, keep working, and if you're really committed, you can reach more than you think. And I think when you're willing to learn, willing to invest, you will be able to reach a higher level and reach a bigger thing you maybe even imagined in the first place.
Thank you. And what are your hopes for the future for this art form, if we'll call it an art form, definitely. Yeah. What are your hopes for the dance music in the Christian scene?
Yeah. Well, the problem with the electronic dance in Holland mainly is that it's really a small, almost a niche. There aren't that many artists active. There are some artists that were active before, but they even quit. So I really hope it will grow. And I will hope it will reach more people. I still keep hearing people saying, is there something like Christian hardstyle or Christian dance music? I never heard of that. So I hope it really will reach more Christian people, and of course also the secular people as well, because I think the genre could use some more attention. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And are there any other projects that you've got coming up that you would like us to know about? Yeah, well, my latest EP was released a few weeks ago. Because what I mentioned before of my other job, I decided to go as a non-profit project for charity. So it's an EP, a Christian hardstyle EP, and the money goes to charity in third world countries providing drinking water. So that's my latest release. And what I try to do is also I made a video, I made the artwork, and there's some other advice you asked before. It's really good to try to develop yourself not only in one specific part, but also in other parts. I do my own artwork, I do my own videos, I do my own PR, my own website. As long as you're willing to learn, you can learn all those stuff. And of course you would like to go as professional as possible, but that's also a learning curve. I think I didn't start with the artwork I have now, but it's something you could develop, and if you're willing. Yeah. And if people want to connect with you and your music, what's the best way for them to do that? Would that be on online platforms or through website? Yeah, I've got all kind of social media. What I try to focus mostly on is YouTube, because I would like to share the story with videos. And they can go for my website, flubbel.com, or any other way, or just speak with me somewhere here. I'm willing to tell you more. Okay. Okay, and you're performing tonight, so we'll get a bit more of an idea of what you do.
Yes, I hope you guys will survive my music. I know it's hard. I decided to choose some more easy songs as well, but also my heart DJ Flubbel songs. So I hope to see you tonight for that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. For a couple of questions. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask? And have I got my lovely lady who runs around for me? Yes. So a couple of questions. We've got time. Who'd like to ask?
There's a small Christian techno music scene in France. Like they play it at night, like from 10 till midnight. Do you connect with other radio stations in Europe? Because, like, anyway, I have the idea of making more nightclubs for Christians that are an alternative. And anyway, I don't know if they have this in Holland, but anyway.
Yes, thank you for your question. I do have some cooperations going on with radio stations in Europe. I know there are some in Germany as well. In Switzerland, there are some artists doing stuff. To be honest, I didn't connect with someone from France yet, but maybe I'll meet them. And I know in America, the United States, it's a bit bigger. They've got like raves or clubs going on, and they even got churches that uses Christian electronic dance music during their service. So maybe one day in Holland we have that too, or in Europe.
You created a new genre. Did you have any opposition, any negative opinions? Did you have to fight as you created it or you started it?
Thank you. Yes. I've got. It's kind of. That's the sad part. Maybe I've got two opposites. First of all, the non-Christian. There are a lot of atheists that really somehow really hate the thing I'm doing. I accept that. I always try to share something of the love we got from God, but they're not really willing to hear that. So that's one part. The other part is from the Christian conservatives. They say all dance music is from the devil. They say it leads to drugs. I don't agree with that. I think it's like any other music genre. It's like a language, actually. You can share a story, you can share a message. So I think it can be good as well. Yeah.
Just a remark. I think that not the things and music is bad or good. We are bad or good.
I agree.
DJ Flubbel, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, our next artiste to the stage is Martina Tak-Visser. So Martina, can you come up please? And let's give her a hand too. So Martina, also from the Netherlands.
Yes.
There's a theme going on this morning.
45 minutes, awesome.
Ah, wonderful. And trained as a dancer?
Yes.
Yes, and now currently a dance teacher.
Yes.
Yes. So how did your journey into dance begin?
I am very tall, and the other children were very small, so I was standing like this when I was 10 years old, so my mother said, you need to go to classical ballet because you need to stand up straight. So that was actually the point.
Ah, okay. Oh. So you started in classical ballet, but actually you've developed into other styles now. Can you just tell us a bit more about the style of dance that you do and how that also came about?
When I was in high school, I did all the styles. I danced like 10 to 14 hours a week in the ballet school, and I did the hip hop, the jazz, the ballet, the modern. And when I entered the dance academy, all those styles actually were also taught, and we also did a little bit of African actually. So that's yeah.
Okay, so quite broad and varied, but a real focus
Yes.
now perhaps more on modern and contemporary.
Yes, I find that so all the technical dance training is not actually suited, everything is not very suited for my body, so my body has not the capacity to turn out that far or to be as flexible as I would like to be. And that doesn't mean that I should not do it. It actually, when you do this technical training, it actually helps your body to be in the body alignment and everything. But I also found that modern and improvisation is more suited for my body, and it actually gives me more, how do you say, I know now more about dynamics and about alignment and about my own body because of those styles, and not, for me, classical ballet was a little bit limited in that space. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And we're going to talk a bit more about you as a performer in a minute, but you have spent the last 12 years teaching.
Yes.
So can you just tell us a little bit about who you've been teaching and what you've been teaching?
Yeah. So after school I was with Christian Dance Company. We had a training program, so I was teaching 16 plus in an intermediate level. I did the ballet schools with classical ballet I taught, and I had actually a lot of success and more fun with adults who are in modern, very beginners. They, you know, with all the TV programs about So You Think You Can Dance, the modern dance got more into the picture, and there were more adults that actually wanted to follow the class. So I had really a lot of students actually in that department, and it was really fun. Now I'm also teaching at the PABO in Zwolle, you know, the educators for elementary school department. That is really fun because I'm actually entering a new network or a new space where dance is taught to people who actually have to teach dance. It's amazing. They have like 5 dance classes a year, and then they actually have to teach dance. So that's actually not possible. But my goal there is to make those new teachers really excited about art and about dance, so they will be very open to it. So when dance will enter the school that they are teaching, they actually know what people are doing there. It's nice when you know what is happening with your class and they're open to it. Yeah, yeah.
It's fantastic, and it's really good to hear that you love teaching, and that's been your major investment for the last 12 years.
Yes,
so.
I did. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Yes.
Yeah. So, but you're about to enter a bit of a new season. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what's coming next for you?
Yeah. So, entering my 30s, I just became a mom, and what I think in my 20s was actually happening is that I hold on to the things that I'm actually more, how do you say? Je bent er zeker in? You are feeling confident?
You're assured.
You're assured, yes. I'm very assured as a dance teacher. I do it a long time, so I know my way around there. But there are still some dreams that you actually don't dare to enter because that's a lot more scarier. So I'm actually done with being scared. Okay. So I quit all my jobs. And so I quit my dance teaching. I will be teaching still in that PABO department, but not as a ballet teacher anymore. And I also recognize now that I am actually not suited for the little children. I like them, I can do it, but not for a lot of years. That is like, I really have a lot of respect for people that can do that a lot of years after each other. And I'm entering into, I want to focus next years more on my artistic part and on my own dance. So after I was done at the academy, I struggled with finding a dance class that was actually suited. If you have had so many teachers, it's difficult to find a teacher that you actually like and that you want to be with for a couple of years. But I actually found one 2 or 3 years ago, and she entered me into a whole nother world of movement actually. And so I want to use that to be more in my artistic development, to be more as a dancer researcher, or be more as a performer, and I'm actually more ready for that now. So I'm actually performing tomorrow night on this stage, and you know, I've been performing here on this stage a couple of years ago with Christian Dance Company, and it was really nice to dance all those choreographies. So tonight will be more of a reflection of the work that is actually but that I did the last 2 or 3 years, and is actually the start of my new search for the next coming years. Yeah.
It's really exciting, and congratulations on becoming a mum.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
And I did.
Birthing a baby and birthing new things all at the same time.
Awesome. So. Creation, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So, in terms of performance, you'll be working perhaps both in Christian and what we might consider secular context. So, yeah.
I've always been, you know, in the spagat, 2 ways.
Yeah. And how do you feel you bridge the gap between those 2 worlds that are quite different, perhaps in terms of expectation?
There is no gap. I think the gap would be in me then.
Okay.
So I am assured in Christ, and I think that when I go perform with dancers that are actually not Christians, that doesn't matter to me. Actually, it also doesn't matter to them. I know that God will move with me on stage, but I don't have to tell everybody that. I don't have to tell my choreographer or everybody that I'm dancing with. I feel that the Spirit will move in a way that is suited for Him. Yeah.
That's great. So are there some specific projects that you've got lined up yet, or are you in the process of just finding those projects that you will work with?
Let me think. No, there are no specific parts now, but yes, actually there is. That's a quite big one. So this teacher that I was telling about is ready to start an arts and movement live program. A-Lab it is called, and it's new, and it will go on for the next 2 years, and then she will have another group. It will be in November. There will be a whole week that I will be with a group, and we will dance and move together for 5 whole days. So there's 5 days of input, and then you actually go back to your normal life, and you will try to put it together with your own life. And then in March there's another week. So for 2 years there will be 6 weeks in total, but it will be spread out over 2 years. And the point is that you can integrate it with your work and your life.
That's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you. And based on your experience to date, what advice might you have for people in a similar situation to you, or people who are exploring what next, particularly in the area of dance?
Keep moving, and I mean it quite literally. I feel that at this moment, I have a lot of questions the last couple of years about why I'm actually taking class with people that are not Christians. But I actually don't see a lot of Christian dancers or teachers who are open to new. No, I'm not saying that right. I didn't find them, and or they are. Maybe they are. I mean, there's like a Springs dance company in the UK, and if I would live in the UK, I would probably go there, but I'm not. So I'm searching to ways to develop myself, to keep developing myself, and I actually need to do that with just in the world. So yeah. So my advice is to not be scared of that information. I mean, sometimes she talks about. I think she believes in. There are more powers in the world, but not in our God. And that's okay for me. She can talk about that, but I will. If I talk about it, I will be talking from another corner. Actually, yeah.
But you're happy to work with her, learn from her, and you'll develop yourself through others, regardless of their
beliefs. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't advise that for everything, of course. I mean, I think that there will be some limitations in the sense of. When I was in the dance academy, they asked me to dance in high heels, with, panty. And I actually did it. Also, I was a Christian, but I did do it, and I was not comfortable in that. But I am not in that stage anymore. You can ask me, but I won't do it anymore. So that's because you grew more matured. But I'm also not in the dance academy anymore. And I actually talked to my teacher, and I said, I'm not comfortable with this. And he said, well, you can choose. You cannot do it. And be okay with that, or you can do it and try to learn from that experience. Well, I learned from it, and I don't want to do it anymore.
I like your honesty. That's great. Let's give it a round to Martina. That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm sure there are a couple of questions, so we've got time for a couple of questions. Yes, already.
Hey, Damaris.
What's the name of the teacher you're working with?
She's asking what the name of the teacher is. Her name is Iris van Peppe. She runs Dance Improvisation Utrecht. She has her own beautiful, it's one of the most beautiful studios I've seen in the Netherlands actually. And her program is called ELAP.
Okay. Thank you so much, Martina. If you've got more questions, she will be around. I think because we've got, we've got time? Are we good? One more? Thank you, Jonathan.
Just wanted to ask you, because I'm a dancer too, whom did you work with as this Christian dance company? What was your experience like there?
You mean with the Christian Dance Company?
Yes, which company?
It's called Christian Dance Company, and it was run by Desiree van Drongelen. She will be here tomorrow. She's in the board, I think, still. Actually, I think God called me through dance. So even when I was not a Christian, I was already dancing in churches because the ballet owners were Christian. So they said, you know, go dance Storm on the Lake. Do it. I was like, okay, I will dance Storm on the Lake. And actually, I think Christian Dance Company really gave me, it was like my first church, you know. I didn't have a church, but it gave me a lot of, you know, community and everything. Christian Dance Company, it doesn't exist anymore, but it had a very specific calling. And it was very nice to, that calling was more into the, I cannot say it in English. Let's try in Dutch. Om de Palestijnen en de Arabieren te verzoenen door dans heen. Reconciliation through dance by the Jews and the Arabs. So that's a very huge calling. I think it was for me very nice to learn a lot about this whole world. The world of the I don't know if I can say it that way. I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. The world of the Jews and the world of how the Israelites are doing stuff, you know, in the conference about this. And it gave me a lot of information about who God actually is, especially in the Old Testament, yes. So I really enjoyed it. It was a very nice, it was a lot of years. I think I danced with them for 8 years. We did so much, and I really enjoyed it a lot, yeah.
Thank you very much, Martina. Martina Tak-Visser. Well, our third and final guest comes from outside of Christian artists, actually, and it's Roofthooft. And can I invite Ward to the stage? Let's give him a hand. Thank you. Welcome, Ward. Now, you are a strategist. So what is a business strategist doing here at Christian Artists?
Well, a strategist is somebody who knows the way and goes the way, the most effective and the most efficient way to reach his goals. So that is a strategist.
Yes.
And because of a number of reasons dictated by the environment, the lack of subsidies and all these things, I do believe that artists today have to review their goals and to review the ways to get there.
Okay.
And some people have thought that I might be useful in helping them in that process. That's how I'm sitting here.
I'm sure you will. It's really good to have you here. Can you tell us how you actually began in this whole area? How did this begin for you? Yeah.
Well, I do believe that, well, those of us who know something about football, I do believe that when my father decided to have me, he was already thinking, I'm going to make a number 6 of that man, that boy. And 6, that's the controlling midfielder, right? A controlling midfielder is the strategist of the game. He has to conquer the ball and to play it in the correct direction so that other players can do something useful with it. And someone like that has to have 3 specialties, or a profile of 3 very peculiar qualities. Number 1, he must have an indestructible physical fitness because he is going to run more than anybody else. He must be a little bit of a football player, technically speaking, and he must have a bad character because he's going to poke his nose into everybody else's business. So that's how I was born, and from there onwards, I have led a very unconventional life.
Yes.
That started with schooling. For example, I went to the 3rd class of primary school at age 20. That occurred in a very peculiar way. I went to a very big, very small school where there were 2 classes in 1 room. So when I went from the 2nd year to the 3rd year, the mistress found out that I was faster ready with the 3rd and the 4th year than the other pupils, so she decided to make me jump the 3rd year. Later on, I went to teachers' college because my parents didn't have the money to pay my university studies. So I became a school teacher. And at age 20, which was the year that they gave me? The 3rd. So that way, that hole in my education was completed, was formed. And from there onwards, everything went in a very unconventional way. I worked for Janssen Pharmaceutica for some time, very beautiful company. And they decided that their young managers should have a postgraduate in marketing management. And they enlisted me there as well. And Antwerp University said, we cannot give a postgraduate to somebody who doesn't have a grade. And Janssen said, well, we are asking you in a very friendly way to take him also. Anyway, thanks to the might and the power of Janssen, I got my postgraduate in marketing management the same way. I got my MBA,
Yes.
and later on I got my PhD, and all that without ever sitting a single day on the bench of a university.
That's amazing. Give me a clap for that.
Eventually, I was visiting professor to about 15 universities around the world, between San Salvador in the west and Vietnam in the east. So that's rather unconventional. All that were building blocks in what I tried to develop as a capacity to think strategically.
Okay, so that's your role now. If you could perhaps just tell us who you're working with now, who you're enabling, empowering, encouraging.
Right, well,
Yes.
students at universities. For some time, also 15 years, I worked for the United Nations as a consultant in international marketing strategy. And today, I'm still lecturing at the ICEADE University in San Salvador. I think that they are about to try to establish a record, namely to have the oldest and ugliest professor. Because otherwise I cannot understand why they are dragging a mummy all the way over the ocean for 30 hours of international strategic alliances. Anyway.
You're very harsh on yourself.
It does mean, obviously, because they carry the expense of the travel, of the stay in the Sheraton Hotel and the honorarium, of which they don't have to pay if they use one of their own professors. So I do believe that the students, they are actually waiting for Frank Sinatra when I arrive. For something special.
Yes.
So to me, being up to date is by far not good enough.
Okay.
I have to be ahead.
Yes.
And there I'm blessed again, living just 200 meters away from a natural reserve over there in Flanders.
Okay.
In Spanish they say, donde tú tienes tu casa, where you have your home, so you're always welcome. And I spent 1 hour a day over there in Mother Nature. And I'm a Boy Scout.
Okay.
Now you can't take a Boy Scout out of the woods out of the forest, but you cannot take the forest out of a Boy Scout. So that's the place where I lose all my controls and where creativity sets in. Perhaps a suggestion for artists as well. Just take away yourself from the practicalities of life and allow yourself to go totally empty so that creativity can set in.
That's great. Well, I'm glad you used the word suggestion just then, because what I want to ask you is, what suggestions would you have for artists here in particular to be able to secure their future income, to be successful based on some of the thinking that you've done?
I first have to have a question to answer that question. Do you all have a mirror back home? I think most of you have. So you will have to look in the mirror. Now I have to be more precise. Because a man looks in the mirror to see himself. A woman looks in the mirror to see how the mirror looks at her.
Very perceptive.
Be that as it may, next time you look in the mirror, you ask the other person, be it a man or a woman, what do I have to do next? And the answer in the mirror is going to say very clearly, next to your talent as an artist, you will have to become a businessman. Or otherwise, I'm afraid you're going to be for trouble. That's
okay, a businessman or businesswoman.
Woman, obviously.
Yes, of course. Okay, so how would one start then? Or where would one start?
Well, this afternoon, for example, we have a presentation into which I'm going to try to go with you through some very, very basic ideas about business. Now, we have just witnessed this wonderful, magnificent presentation by Paul Donders. He has stolen some of my thunder, by the way, which I consider a compliment. And I strongly hope that you will take away, if only one single useful idea of that, and apply it in practice. That will be a start. It does not matter where you start. You do have to know that it is the first step that matters. And wherever you go, and however long your march is going to be, it will always start with that first step. And it will be the first step in which you are become aware of the need to walk that way. All the rest will be offered to you in very, very many ways. Your participation into this conference, for example, is already such a first step. So it can already awaken you to do all the necessary things. I'm not going to preach for certain learning programs or certain books, or all these books are very useful. By the way, you always have to read. We all have to read. And we should read the books that everybody knows and that nobody has read. So there is plenty of wisdom in the Bible, for example, or in Shakespeare, and so forth and so on. Reading is a must. And you cannot unlearn it. That's the other advantage of reading. Okay? So there is so much that has been written that is very, very, very useful. And again, it will be the decision to take that first step. The decision that I had to take many times in my life, and that was to never allow the tail to wag the dog, but to be responsible for your own life. And an absolutely indispensable ingredient of your new life as an artist is going to be businessmanship or businesswomanship. Okay?
Yes, thank you very much. And just listening to you now, you've already alluded to some lessons learned along the way. Are there any other lessons that you've learned, or stories that you could just tell where you thought, this was where I learned something that I've carried now for the rest of my life?
Well, I'm briefly mentioning two of the thunders that Paul stole from me. One is this 5-year program. In 1978, I was invited to a management course in the United States, And there was a young lady, 28 years old, vice president, personnel of a big American company, and she launched this idea of having a 5-year program, a 5-year plan of what you're going to do with your life. I immediately adopted that, changed a couple of things to suit my needs, and ever since 1978 I have applied that principle, and it has worked very well. I usually work with 6 goals that I want to reach in 5 years' time. Once I did not reach one of these 6 goals. I wanted to be the vice president in a company. I was not the vice president in that company, but I became the president in another company. So I overshot the goal, right? In my present goals, it is a fight. I have now a fight with number 6 of my 6 goals. I want to learn again, for the 3rd time, to play the 3rd cello suite of Bach on the guitar. And I learned from Werner this morning that he just played the Allemande. I do play the classical guitar, but I don't have enough talent to call myself a student, an artist. So I keep myself busy with playing what I can play and with transcribing Bach's and Mozart and Schubert for the guitar. Right? So that's what I do when I am. Well, I'm not working. I've never worked a day in my life. I've only had fun all the time.
Woo! So you've obviously worked with different groups of people across the world. Perhaps just zoning back into the artists, are there any other things that you feel that artists have in their favour when it comes to regenerating or transforming themselves or beginning to think in a more business-like fashion? What would you say that artists have in their favour?
Oh, well, lots of things. Number one, they are unique by the composition, by the portfolio of their talents. They are unique. Secondly, that portfolio is a fantastic source from which they can derive not only satisfaction and happiness, but also techniques that are needed to move ahead. Only you must be willing to employ these elements, these talents, in other ways. At Janssen, where I worked for 17 years, when you started your career at Janssen, you were almost certain to be employed in another discipline than that what you had studied, right? When I have been the CEO of a $100 million company for 3 years, and I had a very beautiful group of young managers, and I told them in one of the first days of my tenure there, if you do anything right in your job, I will kick you out of it and into another. Because we are all so many talents that are just sleeping there, lying there, and that we don't use. And the artist, that's the danger. The artist may be so falling in love artistically with his artistic talents that he never calls on all the other talents that he or she has. And my invitation would be, again, to look in the mirror and to say, what else can you do?
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, I want to especially allow a little bit more time for some questions, because I think you've probably raised questions in people's mind. People are pretty fascinated as to who you are and what you've been learning. So, some questions. Do we have anything that we would like to ask Ward? Yes, already.
Sorry, I missed your second thing. You were talking about 2 things you wanted to say. There's a 5-year plan that was important to you.
Oh yes, thank you.
There was a second
I missed one, yes. That was that very early in life I gave up the idea of becoming perfect, and to replace the search for perfectionism by the search for harmony. And again, I have to refer to the one who stole my thunder. I do employ, and I think regularly, not every minute, not every day, but very, very frequently, about my pentagon of harmony. And it's made of, like most pentagons, of 5 sides. One is physical fitness. Make sure that you're physical fit. The second one is intellectual curiosity. Don't only jog your body, but jog your mind as well. The third one is professional excellence, because you spend more time on work than anything else, except sleeping perhaps, in all your life. The next one is values. Make sure that you have values and that you have a hierarchy of values and that other people can recognize them. And that you don't look like a butterfly who has a hiccup. And the last thing is emotions. Make sure that you have an emotional life and not just an intellectual life. That you develop relationships and that you foster them, that you take care of them, and that you develop them. That was the second one. Okay?
You can have 2
When I hear you talking about strategy, I mean, when we hear about strategy nowadays, we hear about, or we look at, whether it's gaming or it's other areas, it seems we hear a lot about the metaphor of war. How much do you think in terms of war, or is it something else you're looking at?
Thank you. You're invited to my next course, by the way. I like the kind of students that have these penetrating questions. I did train as a reserve officer in the Belgian army, by the way. I finished as a first lieutenant. And then I went to work for Janssen. And then I had to go back to the army to get my 3rd star of captain. And I went with that invitation to my boss, the boss of International. And I said, well, what do I do? And he said, well, what do you want? Your 3rd star or a continent? Because I was going to promote you to the boss of Africa. So guess what I chose? The continent. But, this being said, marketing and business does have much in common with the military. The line of thinking of the military can be traced back easily in the military. Obviously, we do not and should not think in terms of war. And by the way, the most beautiful, some of the very, very beautiful people that I've met in life were military people who were military people just to make sure that they never had to go to war. But you're right. The line of thought is have a goal, develop a strategy to get there, employ the tactical steps in order to get there, and make sure you get organized to be able to do these steps. The line of thinking is indeed the military alphabet, so to speak. But again, you do that, of course, in the most peaceful way possible. I hope I answered your question.
Ward Roofed. Sorry, say again. Ward Roofthooft.
You're almost there.
I'm almost there. Dr. Ward Roofthooft.
I had the benefit of studying theatre at the University at the Conservatory of Antwerp, and my name, Roofthooft, was being used as an exercise in pronunciation by theatre actors.
Well, I've fallen prey to that completely, but thank you so much for coming, for being our guest, and for giving the insights that you've given us. Let's clap hands.
Please stay, because I have some very important announcements. Jill, I want to thank you for your great help.
Thank you very much.
So you don't forget this. things. One is about the exposition. Please have a look. Took a lot of work to put it on, and it is really worth looking at it. Next thing is, we are now going to distribute a questionnaire, and you have to fill this out. Normally you find it in your envelope. We decided to do it differently. On those first plenum days we do it now, and you cannot leave the hall unless you give it back to me. You get a free pen going with it, if you want a pen. That was donated by the center, so thank you, center, whatever. Yeah, please go ahead, I see you. Distribute. Go. As fast as possible. Anybody else? I need a second hand because we can split us up. Okay, you can help. Just split it. As fast as possible. I need desperately your answers because when you go home in 2 days, I go very tired and hopefully still alive, drive home, and this coming weekend I have to start writing my report for the European Union, who was so helpful to pay the majority of all the cost of the conference. So I need your answers for that because it will be included. So it must make you very happy that you are included in the report officially to the European Union. Yeah? So, and when you are done, just put it here on stage. So, this questionnaire is only about the plenum days. And then on the workshop days, you will get the questionnaire online later on. That's next week. Yeah? So, we are trying a new way. Okay. And because you're all doing so well, I have a surprise for you. Hey, you want us to have a surprise? Yeah. Hey, this is not in your program book. No. Tomorrow night, after the show, you will get a reception from Ria and me. You know why? Because we celebrate 50 years anniversary of our marriage. And to be honest, it is still a miracle for many people, including ourselves, because when we were getting engaged, evil voices said, this will not take long. And here we are. So you get an official reception tomorrow night. You get 2 free drinks and some snacks and what other stuff. It's on the house. Because you're now writing down all the answers I need. Give and take, eh? You want free stuff, okay, but now you have to work. So when you are done, please put it here on stage so I can collect it. and then you go for lunch. And after that, workshops. We still have a lunch concerto. So also what to do. And check at the receptions where the workshops are. Yeah? It's all there.